Kylie Fowler and this is Rory Kylie, and we are talking today about the software deployment process.
Yeah, the joys. Again, this is another one of those processes that is service management oriented, predominantly, very heavily service management oriented actually.
Yeah.
And we sort of get involved in the periphery right at the beginning as SAM professionals, and we then have very little to do with it thereafter.
Yes, we are assuring that the software deployment process achieves the outcomes that we want to achieve for our management system, basically.
Yes.
This process is owned really by change management, because this is all about changing your estate. It's deploying new software onto your estate, and so you need to do that via a change. Yes, you do need to do that via a change.
You should. You should.
So, what we need to do, and by the way, this can happen, this process is either just for, a onesie, an end user has requested a piece of software and we're going to deploy it through our standardized deployment process, or it might be that we've got a big project and we're deploying thousands of these all at once as part of the project. So it's irrelevant, it all has to go through change. Change management itself does tricky things like having standard changes where you just, as long as you meet the criteria, change management says no, that's fine, you can go ahead. And so it might look like change management has never been involved, but actually what they've done is at some point they've approved a standard change and we're just utilising that standard change to deploy the software. On the other hand, particularly for say infrastructure software or Oracle or SQL or something that's really high risk and complicated, that will go through a formal change management process and we'll end up with the change approval board. There'll be a checklist to make sure that it's safe. They'll have rollback plans in case something goes wrong, and so like Rory said, our role in this is actually really quite minor. All we're doing is making sure that that change is done in a compliant, license compliant way, and in a way that doesn't create software risk down the road.
And I just want to doff my cap in the direction of Barry Pilling at this point of Cortex Ventures or Cortex Consulting. Barry's viewpoint on this is that SAM should be involved at the design authority level.
Absolutely.
So, in theory, what you would see is at the beginning of the change management or any sort of meeting of the CAB, it would be nothing more than a tick. Have we had SAM approval at design authority level? I would argue the only difference why you might say you might have both is that if the design has been approved and then the design has changed to the point where it's got to the deployment process.
No, I disagree, actually.
No?
I think you need to be involved the whole way through. So I feel that software asset managers need to be engaged in three different governance areas. One is the project and program itself. You're probably not ever going to be involved in approving a project or a program, but what you do is you need to understand what programs and projects are coming along so that you can then look at that program and say, you know what, there might be a bit of licensing risk involved in that. Program manager, project manager, can I be involved, please? So that you're getting involved right at the beginning. The next check is to be on your architectural approval board, as design approval board, and again, it's an assurance thing. You need to assure certain things. For instance, that what's being deployed is in alignment with the software catalogue, that what is being deployed is not going to cause licensing risk. So for instance, particularly the interaction, say, between legacy software and cloud software, you need to also be checking that what is going to be deployed is manageable. So if as they have done that design, are you going to be able to capture that design within your software asset management tool? Are you going to be able to capture purchases? If you need to be pushing back and influencing the design to make sure all those things are happening. Then change management happens at the very instance of deployment. So you still need to be involved in the CAB to make sure that nobody snuck anything under the radar.
That's what I said.
Yeah, and
okay, so long as we're on the same page, that's the main thing.
but also there'll be changes that go through change that don't go through design approval board because they, sort of just maybe an upgrade or a patch or something, but you still need to be at CAB to make sure that that's identified and that you're assessing. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. We're
on the same page.
Having a violent discussion in agreement.
So moving on then, I think one thing to highlight as well. So if it is a sort of a wide-scale deployment that you're going through, don't forget the comms in all of this. There are going to be end users that are potentially going to be affected by this influence or alteration to the IT estate. So get that out there.
Not you.
Personally.
The project needs to.
Yes. We can then potentially go ahead and actually deploy any sort of change. And we talk about change too. It could be a scaling back, or it could be a removal potentially, or a downgrade, or some other thing like that. It doesn't always have to be adding more and more and more. And this is the point potentially where pre-approved software can come in. So we mentioned this thing, or Kylie did at the top of the video, that we've gone through that due diligence that we need to for stuff that we don't really need to put through the assault course that we would say of an Oracle database or a SAP system or whatever like that. So if it is
reader,
the desktop naughty stuff, then you can just sort of kick in and say yes.
Example. That is such an Irish way of saying the top of the video.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. I'm not going to do an accent. All right, I'll be disowned and not let back into the country. So once the change has taken place, we can then go through QA checks. So we want to make sure that if we deploy to 2,000 devices, that they're the right 2,000 devices, that the version and edition is correct. Potentially might even want to go down end user sort of acceptance trials if it's the first time that this business software has made a show.
That we can see all 2,000 in our SAM tool. That's really important. This is called delivery assurance, and in really mature organisations, SAM is probably not going to do the delivery assurance. It'll be done separately. So again, we just need to, if you do work in a very mature organisation where you do have separate delivery assurance as part of your service introduction, then make sure that you have that conversation with the people who do that assurance to make sure that your software asset management specific concerns are addressed in that assurance process.
Yeah. So subsequent to those checks, fingers crossed everything has gone well and everything has gone to plan. We can make that communication to say, okay, the change is complete, and we can close any sort of supporting tickets thereafter. If for any reason there's been a problem, we need to conduct some sort of analysis to understand what the problem actually is. And if the problem is severe enough, we might actually say we need to roll back. Or if we believe that the problem is repairable, then we can potentially go to a repair plan as well. And that is something that we should have sort of submitted as part of the change at the beginning of the process. So we've got a fallback. We know we've got a plan that if something goes wrong, we've got something to resort to there.
Yeah. And I think, again, on the topic of change, another category of change that is quite common are emergency changes. Where something is happening, so there's been an incident and there is an operational issue, and so they'll put through an emergency change to resolve that operational issue. So again, you need to make sure that as part of your engagement with change management, you are assessing those emergency changes for any licensing risk, and then escalating to get a resolution for that risk as well. So we haven't got that in our process, because this is not what we've not done. In your process kit book 2, we had a change management process, and I said no, let's separate that out. We need to have a deployment process and a this process and a that process. So that's what we've done in this one. But actually the original process very much was just about we're making a change. So just while we're on the topic of change management, it is really important that you engage fully with change management and are part of the CAB and are involved in all sorts of different changes to ensure that they're not going to cause risk.
Yeah. But at that point, I think we're pretty much done.
I think so, yeah.
Really.
So what are the key things? One is, definitely that delivery assurance to make sure that we deployed what we thought we deployed and it's gone out as we expected. Sanity
checks before and after the deployment, or before and after the change, I should say, not the deployment necessarily, the change. And that's viewed through the eyes, potentially, of the SAM suite, as opposed to any sort of ITSM suite. Because we've got our day jobs to do at the end of the day. So,
absolutely. Great.
Job's good.
Yeah.
Nice and easy.
Thanks. See you later.
Take care.